So, welcome to today's conversation where I have the pleasure and the privilege of sitting with the one and only Alexander Michael Gittens. Alex, welcome to this beautiful, enlightened conversation we're about to have today.
Thank you for having me. And I think that with our pre-interviews and the conversations we've had, I cannot wait to see where our conversation goes
Oh, I'm
today.
excited.
Yes, I am too.
It's going to get deep. It's going
Let's
to get
do it.
juicy. It's going to be
Juicy and deep.
delicious. It's going to be all the things.
Let's go.
So, we met, just so everyone knows, because there's going to be, of course, a lot of synergy and a lot of synchronicities and personal stories and examples that I'm so looking forward to both sharing and hearing
Yes.
from you. We met in, I believe it was 2016.
Yes.
Right?
So 8 years ago
8
now.
years. Do you remember where we met
I
specifically?
do. I remember exactly where we met.
Yep.
One of your very, very close and dear friends.
Yeah.
You were there supporting her, and you were all over making sure everyone was good and situated. And it was an interview being done for Rogers TV. So you had great energy there, and it was a wonderful set. And we had a chance to speak and connect afterwards, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yes.
And, we have been following one another on social media. And I just have to say, first of all, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You're so
Thank
amazing.
you.
And the way that you show up authentically and in your own embodied leadership,
Thank you.
that to me, this is what I help others with all around the world. And this is what I live for. This is a big part of my higher purpose in life. So whenever I get to brag about my friends and the people that inspire me and just inspire the world, really, like, you deserve your flowers. So if I end up
Thank you.
complimenting you throughout this, it's okay to blush a little.
And what I love about what you've said is that it says so much more about you, that when you see people trying and doing things and making mistakes and getting better, that you're there not just to encourage them, but to celebrate them when they finally figure a few things out. So that says a lot of wonderful things about you. So I definitely accept that. Thank you.
Awesome. My pleasure. Celebrating is important. And what I've noticed is that not enough people do it.
Sure.
And something that I'm big on, for those of you who don't know me, I'm big on energy. I'm big on mindset, manifestation, the law of attraction, just universal laws. And really, I weave God into the conversation as much as humanly possible. And I'll share my story with you a little bit later, because I don't think I've shared this part of my life
And
with
I
you.
think the world needs to hear it as well. So I'm going to be lucky to get to hear it here live, but I can't wait until everyone else gets to hear it as well.
Thank you.
Yes.
So when it comes to who you are, what you do, everyone always does these formal introductions,
Yes.
right? Whenever they're doing interviews or podcasts, whatever the case is. And I was thinking about the introduction that I wanted to do today and just moving forward. And you know what came to my mind?
Sure.
My name is Dr. Fasana Patel. I am a life coach. I am a spiritual teacher. I am a woman. I am a sister, a daughter, a niece. I am a passionate soul. I just thought of all of these different quote unquote labels, right, that I identify with, because these are all different facets of what make up my self-identity in life. Right. And one of the biggest concepts that I love helping people understand better is the fact that we are so multidimensional.
I like that.
In our nature. What does that mean to you when you hear that term, being multidimensional?
It's
multidimensional.
It just sounds like a beautiful concept.
Yeah.
For a lot of my life, I thought I needed to hide certain parts of myself in certain areas. I always felt like I was a little bit too much of this or not enough of that. And if in business they could see how I am at family, or family could see how I was in business, and I worried about my perception of other people's perception of me. And one of the nice things about getting older is you find yourself a little bit and you sort of trust yourself. But when you said multi-dimensional, what it made me think is a level of acceptance of all of the things that make me who I am, and then the responsibility that comes with that, to make them work together harmoniously and to have a net positive, not just ultimately, but even moment by moment. So I love the word, and it got me thinking about what perhaps were conflicts that I perceived in myself, were perhaps facets. It's a beautiful word. and it's up to me to put them in the right light so that they can have the biggest shine.
I love that.
Mm.
You are such a well-spoken human being.
Really?
Yes.
I is educated?
Yes,
Oh, wonderful.
you are. What would you say drives you to do what you do today? Because ever
Yeah.
since I've met you, you've been so incredibly passionate about
Mhm.
these concepts, greatness, leadership,
Sure, sure.
business. What drives you in life?
I'm gonna give you 2 answers because the first one is I don't know. I when I was a kid, I used to have this reoccurring nightmare, and I used to it would manifest itself in all sorts of weird ways, but no matter what it was, there was this moment where something important needed to be done, and I would mess it up. So there would be one where it's like, I'm supposed to put 4 drops into this cauldron, and I put 5. And the funny thing is, it was so horrific what would happen after I messed up that I can't even remember what actually happened. I just remember like waking up screaming, run into my parents and just jump into their bed. And so as I got older, I realized that I have a desire to do better. I have a desire to become more. I have a desire to achieve things that I don't even understand what they are. And that nightmare of messing things up, it kind of evolved into but if I don't do things, nothing will ever change and I'll be the same. So, in my loneliest times, in my most disconnected times, in my most unaligned times, I think that was my only friend is the fact that I knew I won't be static. I knew I would keep moving, but I don't truly know what drives me. I just know that standing still is something that it just wouldn't be me. Now, on the other side of that, what excites me about the opportunity of growing and all of that it's really simple. The poet Walt Whitman, he has a wonderful quote where he said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I think at various times, a lot of us are where we can be accused of judging ourselves too harshly,
Mhm.
and just being too self-critical. And when I think of being curious, I think about, well, if I give my all in every moment, and if I look at every moment that I'm in as an opportunity to be the most of who I am unapologetically, what would happen? Who would I attract? What rooms could I be in? Who would want to meet me? And I think that thrill of not knowing what's around the corner is what my ambition has evolved into. And I think so it's this childlike curiosity about how much or how far or how interesting could it be. I never lost that. I never lost that silliness and that desire to be more. And it's not as heavy as it was. It's not as scary as it was, but it's perhaps the truest companion I've ever known is that feeling. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay. How would you relate to your soul in this lifetime?
That's not only the most important thing, it's the only thing I think about.
Mm.
It because the physical, yeah, I need to work out, be nutritious, give my body the things it needs. I need to go places that are healthy places to be. I need to, that's a little bit more obvious. Then the emotional one, that's interesting as well because the emotional one is like a lagging indicator. So my emotions tend to be based on something that's happened before that maybe I haven't processed or maybe I didn't understand, but I know how to calibrate those. I know how to bring myself back to perhaps the optimal state. But the spiritual one, that's the one that is both undeniable and the most difficult one to get a hold of because it doesn't matter what we want to call it. We all know when we don't feel like we're in the right spot.
Mhm.
And that could be two things. It could be a natural reaction to the unfamiliar, but it could also be your spirit telling you that you are misaligned. And messing that up and not knowing the difference is important. And so the spiritual aspect of each moment to me is knowing, am I in alignment with the way I want my life to be? And I don't
Mm.
mean money I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the net sum of my existence.
Mm.
Am I okay with what I'm doing right now being the only thing that represents that? Now my discomfort has changed from I've never done this before, I'm afraid, to if in every moment I am not true and dialed into the frequency of my soul, then I'm going to get the compound interest of something that's not truly me. And when you're ambitious and curious, that's the worst possible thing that can happen. If I won the lottery, right? While it would be an immediate solution to like financial situations, it would also be a little sad in the way that I was just given this and I didn't get to figure out, like, I didn't solve it. I didn't figure out how I can add more value than someone else. So I think the soul part of it, it's quiet. It's not loud. It's quiet, and you have to listen and you have to be attuned because you're always getting these cues and being pulled in different directions by situations and expectations and circumstances. And if you're not true to your soul, and I'm using the word true because that's the most important thing, because
Mm.
it's not one thing or another. It's really an organic, very all-encompassing thing. But when you stay true, then you get the compound interest of that as a life worth living, which is the most incredible thought that I can think of. Yeah.
Love that answer. Do you
Sure.
think that people in business think about, like, the spiritual aspect of life
Mm.
or the importance of their soul's needs or desires enough?
It's like anything. You can only ignore those things for so long, right? So if you choose to run away from that language and that movement, that's fine. But there's going to be a reckoning at some point where you have to calibrate your choices with where you've become. And that's the beautiful and challenging thing about being an adult, is that even though some of your issues that you have in your life may not be your fault, they're absolutely your problem, and you're responsible for where you go from there. So if you choose to ignore that side of yourself and you focus on material things only and all of that, that's okay in the short term, but there's a cost, right? There's a cost for that. So I think for me, it's not about balance the way some people would think. Like, I'm not trying to balance the elements of my life. I think I'm trying to project them moment by moment, not as big as they can be, but as true, as pure as they can be. And leaving out a part of myself isn't okay. I have 10 of this, 10 of that, and 10. And so if I leave out a part, I now only have 20 instead of 30. I look at it, it's 10 times 10 times 0 is 0, right? So if I'm losing a part of myself, it doesn't matter how good I get in these other areas. It's not addition, it's multiplication. So
Mm,
I need to be on 10 in all of those areas. And ignoring one is to the detriment of who I'll be. So
mm.
it's literally everything or nothing to me.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
You've always been such a purpose-driven individual.
Mhm.
How would you guide, advise, how would you
Yeah, sure.
speak to people that are listening to this conversation who feel disconnected from their higher purpose in life?
Yeah, it's funny because that's when I look at people who have created the career that you have and I admire them, because I've always been someone where it's not like when I had my issues in life and I went through the legal system and I owed all that money when I was in my 20s. It's not like no one told me the right thing to do. I don't listen to anyone. Like, I've always suspected that people's advice is laced with their own hopes and dreams, and I've never seen anyone who I want to be. So I'm naturally suspicious of people's advice if I don't understand their motive, right? And I'm just unless if someone has the life that I want, which I haven't seen,
Right.
I don't really feel like their advice is all that valid. Maybe I'm contrarian by nature, but what I'm saying is it gives me a hesitancy
Yeah.
to give advice to other people
Mm,
because I don't know what you want.
mm,
I don't think you should want what I want. I
right.
don't think you should follow. In fact, I look at it very simply. When I look at deeply religious people and they're very dogmatic and very opinionated and very closed-minded, again, nothing wrong with that. I asked myself a question. What would I have to do for them to agree with my life more?
Mhm.
I would have to do what they say I should do. In order for them to get my respect, what would they have to do? They would have to be more of who they say they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
You see the difference? So for them, I need to change and be more like them. For me, they need to be truer to who they really are.
Right.
So I don't require, think, or even advise anyone to operate the way that I do.
Mhm.
If you can learn anything from me, is that there's no level of success disconnected from your values.
Right.
There's no great life if you don't consider your purpose and your net impact on
Mhm.
the world. There's nothing worth doing if you're the only person who gets the outcome and you don't create great experiences for others. But when it comes to what you should do with your life, that's the most beautiful and wonderful question that's going to lead you to places of doubt and pain and disappointment and self. it's a wonderful journey, and I think that you should experience every emotion to its fullest, and then when you've realized that I've been down for too long, you gotta seek people like Fasana who can help you get to that next level. But I am not someone who has advice for anyone who wants to find anything.
Gotcha.
If you look at the way that I live and you are inspired by that, then I would say I've written some essays and things like that on how I live. But I think you should take that with inspiration and should take that with a grain of salt, because the complexity of an individual is so wonderful that discovering where you should be and how you should be there is a journey that's I wouldn't want to influence anyone on that journey.
I
Yeah.
love what you said there. You
Yeah.
mentioned something so key,
Sure.
which is the fact that everyone is always projecting
Yeah.
their own mindset, values,
Mhm.
past experiences, their own level of consciousness onto
Sure.
everything in life.
Mhm.
So when it comes to looking for advice or listening to other people, I'm someone who identifies with being a very purpose-driven woman.
Mm.
And my answer is exactly the same as yours,
Sure.
which is people have told me what to do in many different situations, and I just sort of feel internally that that doesn't align for me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it this way because this is the vision that I have, and if I don't do this, then I won't know what I'm capable of,
Yeah.
what's possible in my life, what I actually enjoy or desire.
Absolutely.
Right? So I love what you said there. And,
Mhm.
there are so many people that I know are out there that are doing their best to get clarity around what their higher purpose is in life.
Sure.
And something that I get so excited about talking about is this
Yes.
conversation around embodied leadership.
Okay, so you're gonna have to
Right?
help me understand that one because it sounds
Absolutely.
wonderful, but I'm gonna need an expert definition of
Absolutely.
embodied leadership.
Well, you're an amazing example of
Oh,
this.
now I really need to know.
Absolutely, right?
Okay.
Embodied leadership
Sure.
is when instead of preach about something, instead of just talk about something,
Mhm.
we're talking about the leaders out there that walk the talk,
Sure.
that
Sure.
align their behavior with their mindset, with their values, with all of it, and they are on this continual upward spiral of growth in their lives,
Mm.
and they are clear on what it is that they stand for. And you're someone who's been doing this for so many years,
Yes,
and
yes.
it looks different for all of us.
Mm.
I'll give you a personal example,
Please.
right? As a woman, my goal in my coaching practice used to be when I first got started because I was so ambitious, and
Nothing wrong with that.
hey, I still am. However, it looks a lot different
Sure.
now based on the season I'm in within my
Mm.
life, what I've experienced based on putting myself out there,
Mhm.
moving to a different country, completely taking myself out of my comfort zone of living in Canada, relocating, living in the tropics, having this quote unquote sacred soft life that I've always wanted to live. And, values and mindset, we're allowed to change our
Oh,
minds.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so embodied leadership is really about walking the talk. It's about practicing what you preach. It's about developing that level of unconscious competency when it comes
Yes,
to,
yes.
this is who we are, authentically speaking. We're grounded, we're clear on who it is that we want to project
Right.
into this world, the energy we want to give to this world, the legacy we want to leave,
Lovely.
right? So it's embodied. That's the big there.
I understand. The thing is, you explained it so well, I understand it now.
Okay.
And there's two quotes that come to mind, and I'm going to say them both. The first one is by the 6th century philosopher, the Persian philosopher Rumi.
Yeah.
And he said that yesterday I was clever and I tried to change the world. He said, today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. And the second one is from Abraham Lincoln, where he said, I'm not bound to win, I'm bound to be true. I'm not bound to succeed, I'm bound to live by the light that I have. And there's a hierarchy to things. There's a higher order to things. Some things mean more than others. And winning and succeeding in material ways and all of that is great. It's wonderful. I think you should be ambitious, go after everything, get everything you can get.
Mhm.
But the thought of being true and living by light, it appeals to me in a way that I don't get tired of. I don't get tired of thinking of ways to be true. And the thought of not winning to me, it doesn't mean a lot.
Mm.
I hate losing more than I love winning. But the thought of not being a true representation of my talents, my passions, and my behaviors through my words, actions, and deeds, like that's me taking an L personally. Like I am literally, I'm my own problem. I'm infecting myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what would make me not be true? Pressure to act a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
pressure to be what someone else expects. Well, then I'm outsourcing my joy. And we don't want people to be completely unaware of the way in which their actions affect society. And I think that if you are finding yourself and it's hurting other people, then the person you're finding isn't worth finding.
Mm.
But at the same time, when you're curious, like we talked about, more than you're judgmental, then it's like, who could I be?
Mm-hmm.
Who? So for me, the embodied and the leadership are two completely different things.
Mm-hmm.
The embodied is, am I true to the things that are most important to me? Am I actually living in real time
Mm-hmm.
the things that mean the most to me? And at what level of acuity and what level of completeness and what level of consistency am I doing those things?
Mm.
But then leadership, all of that begins with accountability for me. It's like everything I do, there's a cost.
Yeah.
When I make a choice, there's a cost. And for the things I want, it's a heavy cost. It's a big cost. Am I willing to pay that cost? Am I living with the consequences of my choices? That to me is self-leadership. And I feel like when someone sees a person or they're around a person who truly holds themselves to a personal standard of not excellence or greatness, but of purity and truth.
Mm.
Not purity in some religious or, physical way. I mean, purity to who I know.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to know what's right for you. Sometimes you can just stop doing the things that are not connected with you. You don't have to have this great insight on yourself. You can line up your moment by moment actions with what you know to be right. And then you can allow the results of that or the people who come in and out of your life to help you recalibrate and make better decisions. But being embodied, to me, it's simply being true. And the thought of being false offends me. It's not about someone else would like. I don't care. I have to live with that person. And I have what they call in psychology an internal locus of control. So it matters to me what I bring to the world, not really what the world does to me. And as far as leadership is accountability, both for the things I do well and the things I don't. So who chooses to follow me is unimportant. I guess the synonym for leadership would be influence, but I don't think of those things. Like, I hope that the people who I have chosen to journey with in this life, that they can say, after hanging out with you, things are better than they were before. But that's the only metric I really care about. I don't need to be seen or heard or understood as being a leader. I want to be true. And if that equals some sort of leadership or things like, great. But the only real leadership I think of is like leading a family one day and things like that. But I don't really think about the word. And I think also because I'm not a teacher or a politician or anything like that, I'm not really trying to get anyone to buy into the way that I think. Right. So I think that's a luxury you have when you don't have to represent a certain group. That at the end of the day, I'm representing my own name, not even my family name, my own name. And I'm very fortunate that I have a family that has chosen to accept me despite my my obvious and glaring deficiencies.
I was going to say rebellious ways.
I'm worse than that. I'm a scoundrel.
You're funny. So if you were to describe your definition of success, let's say 10 years ago, compared to
10 years ago.
Compared to your definition of success today. I want to show the audience what the levels of maturity, let's call it experience and wisdom, are based on your newfound definition.
I'm going to deflect. I'm going to say you first because I feel as if that this is something where, because of the journey you've been on, that there's going to be a wonderfully seismic change because you were good back then and you're better now. So let me throw the question back at you first and say, okay, so 10 years ago versus now.
10 years ago, I feel like I had finally tapped into this clarity of what God put me on this planet to do.
Sure.
And I made some very, very significant life-changing decisions. I retired myself from my corporate job.
There you go.
And I actually retired myself. I quit my side hustle at the time. I was a part of this health and wellness business. And I found the industry of life coaching and everything clicked for me. And so success then meant it's always been a very holistic concept for me. And the way that I would describe it is because, like yourself, and I think that many people who know you, we would
Okay.
describe you to be someone who operates at this standard of excellence. That's
Thank
just the
you.
vibe you give off,
Thank you.
right? And so for myself, what that meant and what that looked like was simply creating abundance in every area of my life.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In my health and well-being, I was overweight most of my life, so I had a lot of insecurities, a lot of
Sure, sure.
body shame issues, and sometimes people are like, "Are you really talking about this?" I have to, because if I don't
Yeah.
share the story, no one's gonna know,
Absolutely.
right? And so when you actually put the work in and it works, and then you develop the self-love that's available within journeys like this,
Mm.
it's an interesting concept, and I won't go down that rabbit hole right now, but abundance within health and well-being, abundance within my career and my business, my finances, and then abundance within my relationships, with my family,
Mhm.
with my friends, my inner circle, my intimate relationship.
Sure.
And so I would say that the difference between then I had this very, very bright-eyed, almost unicorn approach
Yeah, okay.
to, I would say I was overly spiritual, if you will,
Ah, okay, yeah.
and I wasn't grounded the way that I am
Mm.
today. And so today, my definition is very much the same. I do love experiencing the abundance that I have in every area of my life. And I'm grateful for learning the ways of being, the internal strategies, the mindset, after understanding that as a female, I don't need to be as masculine as I used to be in my past. I don't
Mm.
need to have these goals that actually cause me in the day-to-day of my work-life balance to
Yeah.
be exhausting my nervous system or continuously burning myself, exhausting myself, draining myself. This is actually a lot about what I help women
Sure,
shift
of
into for
course.
themselves, because I don't know if people talk about this enough, and I'm gonna say it right now because it's coming to mind.
Okay.
But, energetically speaking, from a hormone perspective,
Mhm.
the 9 to 5 work system, some will argue that it was designed for men because within men, testosterone regenerates every day.
Oh, okay, that makes sense, yeah.
Within women, our energy levels and our estrogen levels replenishes every 28 days based on our
Oh, yeah,
cycles.
that makes sense.
So when I started realizing and really reclaiming my femininity, let's call
Mm.
it, I'm still very ambitious. My mindset is still at that standard of excellence. I still get up every day, go to the gym. No one tells me what to do to
Good,
maintain this
good.
discipline for myself. But
Mm.
at the same time, it's like, it's this beautiful energetic balance that I get to experience now as an empowered woman,
Sure.
because I'm no longer trying to operate as a man in this world, because I'm not a man. I'm a woman.
It's a beautiful perspective, and thanks for sharing because we're saying the same thing, you're just much better at saying it. And that is, as you discovered more of who you were meant to be,
Yeah,
you cared less about who other people thought you were supposed to be.
right.
And that's freedom to me. That's freedom because not caring what people think at all
Mhm,
is just that's a sociopath, right?
mhm.
But we want you to care just a little bit more about your own voice and listen to it until you get attuned to it
Yeah.
than you do the outside voices. So
Mhm.
you don't want that gap to be too big where you're like, no one knows anything, right?
Right.
Because you might achieve a lot. Like people that do have those sort of neurotic tendencies, they might be very successful in one area of life.
Yeah.
But, and if that's your goal to be successful in one area of life, then you
Mhm.
should probably obsess over it and do nothing else. But then we all have to ask ourselves, is that a life worth living?
Right.
And that's the most personal and intimate question. And please ask it often
Mm.
and be honest with yourself, because a lot of us, we wait until we're on the, like me, you're on the backside of the hill before you start thinking about what you're meant to be and how you can put your own unique dent in the universe. Yeah.
Mhm. I love that.
Mm.
Okay. What's one question that you've always wanted to ask me that you haven't yet?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to sound horrible for saying this, but I've always been someone, tell me if this makes sense to you,
Okay.
because you think about things so deeply and so
I do.
completely. But it's always been more curious to me
Mm.
what people want me to think about them.
Mm.
Because there's this line in King Lear, all right, the Shakespearean play, where he's like, thou thinkest 'tis much this contentious storm, all right? And basically, he's talking to everyone saying, it's raining outside, it's storming outside, and you all are so afraid.
Yeah.
But then he says, but where the greater malady is fixed, the less is scarce felt. And so he's like, I got so much going on inside of me that's a storm.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about what's happening out here. And I think that's the way I've always approached things is that I'm always curious about what people want me to know about them.
Mm.
But I've never really thought, if I could ask Fasana anything, I'd ask this.
Yeah.
Because you've heard the saying that I can't even hear what you're saying because what you're doing is too loud. I'm too busy in preparation for this interview.
Right.
I've read everything. I've gone through everything, right? Because that's my process. I followed every link. I've gone to every whatever because that's my process.
Yeah.
But the way in which you choose to represent yourself, to me, is more interesting to me and more curious than what I think I want to know. Because I'm going to learn more by watching your actions than I'm going to be listening to what you say anyway. Right. So I've always approached things that way. And I think that comes from being shy as a kid and I'm still an introvert, but I've kicked the shyness. But I've always been more of an observer than that. My only curiosity is what will happen if I'm stay true. I'm not really, is that horrible? I'm not really curious about what other,
You have a very brilliant mind. You have a very brilliant mind, so I'm never going to judge you.
That's what it looks like from the outside?
I mean, that's what it feels like.
Because there's a walnut rattling around in there. Yeah, there is.
A walnut?
Yeah, okay. Walnut-sized. Yes. I don't know what it looks like from the outside, but it's mostly air whistling through my ears in there. So
your sense of humor has definitely improved.
Has it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely still silly. But at the end of the day, I don't really take myself as seriously as people might think. I just love the opportunity to I like being an adult. I like being responsible for my choices. I like having people that rely on me. I like being someone that people can respect. Like I like those things.
Yeah.
Like when you're a kid, like especially us, I've come from immigrant families. It's like kind of like seen and not heard, right? And so the opportunity to kind of do what I want to do, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know what to do, but the fact that I get to do what I want I've never felt the pain of responsibility as much as I've felt the opportunity for that. So yes, I've messed up my life a few times. I probably have a couple super big crashes left in my life. Hopefully not too many. But I don't know. I never lost that. Like I've never lost that love and that thrill of having the gift of life. And every time I try to think about deep things, like I see you talk about and all of that, I come back to the same place all the time. I literally have no clue. All I know for sure is having the time and space to figure out what and how I'm supposed to be in this world is an opportunity it's literally the biggest blessing I can think. Where it came from, because I'm not religious, so I don't think about God doing this or God doing that. I absolutely don't know.
Yeah.
And even though I only have a walnut, it works over time. I'm not actually an idiot. And I've thought about these things as deeply as I can think about them. And the only thing that comes back to me is the beauty and opportunity of defining my existence moment by moment. Nothing else. Because it's all too wonderful to be true and it's all too wonderful to be false. And so none of it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking the other day, so I was raised Christian and my parents are ministers, they're missionaries now. And because I love poetry and that, obviously I love the Psalms and Songs of Solomon, and we had to memorize scripture when we were young, but I'm a reader. So I naturally memorize stuff, right? I really do. And so when Paul, who was Saul at the time, was on the road to Damascus. He was there to persecute the Christians. He was going to get letters to give him permission to persecute the Christians. And the Bible says that he was struck by a great light. He fell to his feet and he heard a voice from heaven. I don't even need to say the rest of the story. I'm a kid. I'm like, bro, isn't this the guy who wrote like a third of the New Testament? He was walking to persecute Christians, saw a bright light, fell on his face, and heard a voice from heaven? That would make me religious too. If I heard a voice from heaven and a bright light hit me to the ground, but I haven't had that experience. So while I think that was great for him, my goodness, he even changed his name. He's like, I used to be Saul, call me Paul. And every time someone would call him Saul, he's no, that's not me, that's the old me. I don't know if that's the way he reacted, but I have these stories in my head. But I'm thinking, okay, so he had that experience that awesome. And I see what he wrote later, some of his letters to the Ephesians, the Galatians, the church at Thessalonica. Some of it's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't have that experience. I saw God's face like everybody else. And I didn't have a bad experience or a good one or a peaceful one. I just came away thinking that what I do with this gift called life and my time and my energy and talents is my responsibility. And I don't want that to be for me alone. I don't want that squandered. I want to be the best representation of all the things that make me me. Everything else is just a blessing. And that's not me oversimplifying. That's literally how I feel.
Yeah.
So when I hear people that are religious or had unique experiences, I feel as if that they have had what they need to get to the place in their life. But if I walk out of here and I hear a voice from heaven, let's say it comes from like Hare Krishna or something like that, I'm wearing orange and rocking with them dudes. Like, I hear a voice from heaven, I'm doing that. Because I ain't never heard no, like, you know what I mean? So that would be awesome. If it was a dream, maybe I'd follow it.
Yeah.
But if I saw a light and a voice, yeah, that's me.
You'd follow.
I'm on that now.
Okay.
I'm on that. I'll change my name.
You mentioned something just now that I wanted to touch on about just being childlike. And, you know, I would say my entire 20s, I devoted to really studying successful people. And I'm talking about like highly spiritual, grounded, like divine, successful people. Those were the type of people that I wanted to model after, because that's who I desire to be in my life.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah. And so the one thing that I noticed, because I was very fortunate to be behind the scenes with many of these leaders, it was a great time. You know, I got to learn the ins and outs. And the one thing that I noticed about every single one of them, they're also connected to their inner child.
Okay, good. It's not just me?
No, it's not just you. And it's something that's so beautiful, because at the end of the day, most adults don't even consider. I mean, when's the last time you thought about the fact that you have an inner child and that, you know, he's very much alive within you?
I don't have to think about that. I'm too silly. Like, it comes out all the time. Anyone who knows me knows that, that's
so so that means that they're integrated, right? Which is beautiful. And I think that one of the, you know, I'm very big into emotional wellness.
Sure, of course.
And,
it's a good thing.
You know, energetic alignment. And it's just, it breaks my heart when I think about people that are still depriving themselves of experiencing higher amounts of play and pleasure and joy and peace and happiness, because, you know, every time I hear you speak, and this has been a constant
for 8 years now. Yeah,
since meeting you.
Sure.
You are extremely self-assured, and you're so well-spoken. I know you read a lot. I know you write a lot. And I know you absorb content that stimulates you mentally.
Sure, thank you.
And, you know, all of that, of course, contributes to how eloquent you are with your words.
Thank you.
You know, and so it's just when people hear people like yourself or people like myself speaking about certain concepts or subjects, especially related to success, I just love, and this is going to lead into my next question.
Okay, please, yeah.
Because I want to know, like, about the lowest time that you can remember where you almost quit or gave up. And knowing you, you're going to say something like, I would never even consider that. I would never want to give up or quit.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But I just want to sort of highlight the fact that on this journey of really becoming who we're meant to be in this life, again, success is completely subjective, right? We need to just identify and accept what it is that we desire to create in this world, and then get on a mission to actually make that happen. But I want to know more about, you know, when was a time that you can remember that people wouldn't often be familiar with, because again, it's probably a part of your private, intimate story in life.
Sure.
But describe a time when you felt like you weren't sure if this was still the path that you wanted to pursue, and how you overcame that challenge.
It's such a wonderful question. I'm just trying to think. So let's talk about what quitting is, because I've quit all kinds of things, but I want to, so can you delve in, because I like when I have a chance to think about something that I don't think about often.
Right.
But it's so poetic, and I love when you read about people and they're like, I had almost given up and then I had this breakthrough.
Yeah.
But I don't know what success would look like or what quitting would look like to me. So help me understand that, because I'm going to give you the best answer I can.
I called that.
Yeah, I don't really think that way.
Right.
Because I've stopped doing so many things.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I guess I was always plagued by the thought that, am I doing the right thing.
Mm.
Not right morally, because clearly when I messed up my life, I had no issue with that. But I always felt like, am I putting my efforts into the right area? Because all through school, I felt like the work they had me doing and the priorities they had, it just didn't connect with me. But when I was interested in baseball or music or different things like that, I could go all day. Then I heard this concept of when you love what you do,
Mm.
then you'll never work another day in your life. Well, I don't love it. I don't love my job. I don't love the things I do. I love my family. I love my friends. I don't think of I don't love my job. It's hard. It's very hard. I respect what I do because not many people can do it at a high level, but do I get enjoyment from it? Not really. The only thing I've ever really enjoyed is the feeling of accomplishing something and that little space before you start something else.
Mm.
I was talking to my mom, and my mom is, she's got to be my biggest fan. My mom and my little sister love me too much. Like, like your mother my mother and my little sister love me too much. My mom sent me a text the other day. She said, if I had 2 sons, you would still be my favorite. I said, I love what I mean. She said, correction 3. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's getting worse, right? So she loves me too much. But she asked me, to kind of define my mindset when I'm doing things.
Yeah.
And I told her a story that she horrified her, but it was such a true way of the way I think. I said, Mom, imagine I'm banging my head against a brick wall. My Caribbean mom did not like that at all. I said, but I keep banging my head against this brick wall. And I'm like, well, why would I keep banging my head against this brick wall? She's like, son, I do not know. I said, Mom, because it feels so good when you stop.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, what does that even mean? But I'm like, that's the only way I can think of what it feels like to, like, I love ideas that reveal themselves slowly. I like things that are hard. I like when the payoff is just one more piece to an even larger puzzle. I don't need to solve things. I don't need to win. I like the feeling of getting deep into things that matter and moving a little bit forward. It doesn't even need to manifest itself as physical movement or financial movement. I like the thought of getting better. And not even the thought of me getting better. I love the opportunity I have to do things where I might get better. And so the relationships I have and the experiences that go along with that, they're just so wonderful to reflect on and to think about. Like I don't really think about the outcome of them as being a goal that I want to reach. I think about the pleasure and the privilege of being able to do things that are hard, being able to get better and to be able to go deeper into the things I care. And I think that's why when, wonderful people that I respect like you say so many nice things about me. I went into the gym the other day. I hadn't gone at that time of day. I just had to get my 10,000 steps in. I literally went to the gym at 6 a.m. and my last meeting ended at 6 p.m. So I'd gone for 12 hours straight and I was thinking, I'm so hungry. I've just been like snacking and I just need to get my steps in. But I hadn't gone to the gym that time of day for so long. And there were literally 6 or 7 people. I was telling Kristoffer about this. And there were about 6 or 7 people there. And I heard my name yelled out before I even turned the corner.
Okay.
And the way that everyone was talking to me and relating with me, I was like, what's going on? I haven't talked to most of them since pre-pandemic. But I guess I got a few followers since the last time I had spoken to them. And the way they were speaking to me, that deference and that respect, I was like, I wasn't sure what to make of it. And when I went home, I was thinking to myself, yes, I'm putting out content. And yes, I'm dealing with business leaders. And I kind of forgot that anyone was watching. Like, I forgot that anybody cared. Like, the fact that they were aware that I was doing things, I was like, what? And I was so confused about what they were reacting to. I'm like, yo, we out here, what's good? But they were like so much like, oh my gosh, like, how are you and whatever, and like, you look great and all of that. And I knew they were lying when they said that, right? I knew they were lying. But the point that I'm making is like, I never really thought about anyone caring about what I do other than myself, the people I love, and the family I'll develop. And as long as those people say I'm on the right track, and as long as I feel in my heart like I'm going in the right direction,
Yeah.
I don't know if I care to influence anybody else because that's true. Like, that is real. It's not buy my program or validate me or whatever. Like, if I had a program, which I don't buy it.
Yeah.
If you want to validate me, please do. But those don't drive me. Like, I don't think of those things. They don't matter to me. What matters to me is like, am I being true to the things that I know and curious about the things that I don't? And what am I focusing on? What am I sacrificing for? Those things excite me.
Absolutely.
But the external stuff and all of that, I guess I was successful young enough, and then I lost everything and owed so much money. I guess I've had perspective on what it's like to be rich, what it's like to be beyond broke, and to grow up not knowing who you are, an immigrant family with no money. So I guess the mystery of what it's like to have a lot, I don't have that. It wasn't as good as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah.
But would I say to somebody else, "Hey, don't make money, don't get rich"? No, no, make your money because you're gonna learn more about your character when you get rich than you're gonna learn about your character by just like, make the money, go after it. But it is true where, yeah, you'll be more comfortable and all that, which is nice, but it's not the solution I thought it was. It's just the truth. It just wasn't. I'm not saying don't get rich. Get rich first. But it's not the solution I thought it was gonna be, yeah.
Right. Wow. From a self-mastery perspective, because, I'm all about that conversation, right? From
Yeah?
coaching world, and it's all about inner
Yeah?
world mastery. Oh, yeah.
I don't know the terms, but every time you say something intelligent
Yeah.
with a real title to it, I agree, so, yeah. I just didn't know there were terms for these things, so yeah.
Well, I wanted to again, I'm just sort of extracting certain, concepts that I can, put into our conversation
Mm,
because you're one of the people in my life that every time we have conversations about this kind of stuff, it fascinates me that you're just so embodied and you're so focused on yourself and your mindset and whatever it is
mhm.
that you can do for you're never looking for external validation. And the thing is,
Yeah, huh.
a lot of people are programmed to do exactly that. And
Mhm.
the thing that makes leaders so powerful when they do learn how to self-source is what I call it. You aren't looking to be like anybody but you, but the best version of yourself. And that is such an admirable
It's hard on that. I
quality.
appreciate that, but let's think of it a different way, okay?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was a musical prodigy. I
Mhm.
played piano all around the world, I traveled all over the States, and they identified me when I was 3 years old, "This guy's special."
Mhm.
Every time we'd have family friends come over, and my mom's like, "Hey, play for auntie such and such, or brother this and that." Like, play for them. I never wanted to. And my mom couldn't figure out why I never wanted to perform in front of people and all that. And I just always felt like this is cheesy.
Mm.
Like every black person I see that's successful is like an athlete or a musician or whatever. I was shy at the time. I wasn't a great communicator, but I felt like I had something else to offer. It wasn't until I was being groomed to go into U of T's. They had a music business program. You have to obviously know what you're doing and you have to audition and all of that. And so my music teacher was working hard to get me ready and I was supposed to go into that program and I just decided I'm not doing it. I think it was probably the first adult decision I made. And I'm surprised my parents rolled with it as much until I realized they rolled with it out of apathy more than anything. Like they're just like, he's going to school, who cares? But upon reflection, I realized that I do not love performance. I don't. I love music. When Kristoffer and I were driving to a speech I was giving in Muskoka for 2.5 hours, I made him listen to bluegrass music, and I explained to him the nuance and how that became R&B and how it's connected to the South. Country music is so complex, and the roots are so. But I love that moment with him explaining that. But if you want me to go on stage and perform, I don't want to. So now when I look at people that are great performers, Beyonce, Taylor Swift,
Mm.
I look at them and I'm thinking, I am so glad that this person has a need to be validated because that relationship between the audience and an artist, it's sacred. They're giving their all. The audience is giving the energy right back, and everybody wins. And then we get mad because some people are more talented than others. Like you can control that, right? Like you can control if you sing like Adele or sing like me. But to learn to be a great performer where you are able to send that much energy to that number of people, that's a skill on its own.
Mm.
The skill that people want to tune into you and watch you, and you get energy from that. I don't have that. So we can look at me and say, oh, he's so humble. Maybe not.
Mm.
Maybe there's something that I lack that other people have, which is when I get in front of people and I'm entertaining, I get wiped out. I feel tired. I feel less than myself
Yeah.
because I don't want to entertain people. It's not, I don't like that. I'm still an introvert. I'm not shy, but I'm still an introvert. But when someone like Beyonce
Mm.
or Taylor Swift, who have that talent for music, which I had a lesser talent for music,
Yeah.
but they also have that talent of being able to transmit energy to a large group. I think we should celebrate these people for having more than I have,
Mhm.
not less, because my desire to not want to be seen or heard or validated is not a strength. It's just the truth of who I am. Like, I truly don't care what someone thinks about me if I know I'm not giving my all. And that's what happened in music. You're so good at that, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't the way I heard it. I could never perform it. I didn't have enough instruments. I couldn't make it the way I wanted it. So when someone else, that's brilliant. I'm like, it's brilliant to you,
Right.
but who cares? It's not brilliant to me.
Right.
And when you know that you're on step 12 out of 100, even if someone says you're a 12 out of 10, who cares? I'm on a different scale. I have a different standard for myself. And if your standard's less than mine, why are we even talking?
Right.
So that's and thank you for saying that, because I don't think I've been able to vocalize it that way. And I wish theoretically I could have like a single tear just to add some drama. But that's how I feel. Like I was always like, when you watch it, like we had a chance to see Hamilton, and my first little ex-girlfriend from when I'm 16, she starred on Broadway, a headlining role in the Carole King story. But I remember when she was 16, and I was always the one playing the piano. She was always the one on stage. But that was the realest Shalina Kennedy, if you want to Google her. That was the realest version of her on that stage.
Right.
And I remember I'm sitting at the piano looking up and happy that no one's focused on me, because it's like beautiful to see someone function in their giftings.
Yeah.
I'm a one-trick pony. I do everything with one hand tied behind my back, right? Like with the thing I do, I try and give it my all. But people like that have more than I have.
So let me clarify something. Are you saying that artists like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, did you say they're looking for external validation?
What I'm saying is, whether they're looking for it or not, the ability to hold the attention of that many people while not imploding or explode. Whether they're looking for it or not, that's a question they have to ask themselves. I don't know.
Yeah.
For me to comment on that is stupid. What's their motivation? I don't know. I don't even know my own motivation. I don't like when people do that. They like or dislike celebrities. Just like, okay, I don't like their vibe, right? But I don't know these people.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's like, there's some people who are just really good at media, and behind the scenes, they're just probably, I don't know, not nice people. And there's people who just don't respond well with a camera in their face. They're probably, I don't know, right? But my point is, people that are great performers and are able to transmit that kind of passion. You can't have a career as long as Taylor Swift and a career as long as Beyonce if you have my inabilities, because that level of attention and scrutiny would not work for me. I would be like, nah, I'm not doing. I would do that quitting that you talked about. I don't have that gene. But when you have a bigger passion to make your art connect with people than you do the judgment of other people, that's superhuman. That's a level of pressure that I can't even imagine. So I look at them and they're more of something than I am.
Yeah.
What they're looking for, I don't know. To even think that way sounds arrogant. What is Beyonce looking for?
Right.
She follows one person on Instagram, her husband.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's goals right there. Like to have one follower and it be the person I've committed to go through life with.
Absolutely.
Based on that alone, I think she's dope.
Right. Absolutely.
I don't, those women are awesome. You'll never hear anything else from me.
Yeah, I love that. You said something the other day that kind of blew my mind a little bit.
In a good way?
Yeah.
Well, let's proceed.
We were chatting last week, and you mentioned, because this is an identity, if you will, an identity that I've taken on for myself as well. It's a little bit different. I also have a very deep love for music.
Yes.
I love to sing.
I've heard that, and I've actually heard you sing, and you're legit.
Oh, thank you.
You posted something quite a while ago where you gave us a few bars, and I was like, okay, word.
Yeah, thank you. I received that. So you mentioned on our call that you were an artist. When you said that, I was like, artist would have been the last thing, just thinking about you. Because again, I'm never here to judge anybody, especially people that I deeply care about.
Okay.
But when you said that, I was like, because what I would like for us to do now is like, I want to hear, what does being an artist mean to you? And then once you're complete, I would love to share what that means to me as well.
Yeah.
Because there's something happening, sociologically speaking, in our world where we seem to have found ourselves in this creator economy.
Sure.
And just so many people are starting to recognize the fact that we're all artists in our own right. So
some more than others, but well, let's start with you, because I feel as if I'm getting tired of hearing my own voice. So let's start with you.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So my brain is extremely colorful and
extremely complex. Yes.
Yes, it is. And so being an artist to me, basically, it's helping me accept my greatness. It's helping me accept my skill sets, my talents without feeling this need to, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, like, play smaller than what I truly
Mm,
desire to do at this point in my life. I noticed that about myself since childhood. I was really good at a lot of things
sure.
and, just naturally talented at things like playing the French horn, which is an
Oh,
extremely challenging brass instrument
a
that
beautiful one though.
it
Yeah,
is
yeah.
when you know how to, yeah, it's
Mhm.
incredible. And at the same time, over the years after, I would say, middle school, I seemed to want to relate more to people. So this was
Sure.
my need for human connection, I guess.
Okay.
And I started to hide certain talents or skills, like singing,
Mm,
for example,
okay, yeah.
with this intention that I just wanted to be more relatable to people. I just wanted people to,
That makes sense, yeah.
and I guess it had to do with just wanting people to like me,
Of
wanting to be
course, nothing wrong with that.
accepted, wanting to be right. And so to me today, being an artist simply means like really fully expressing myself as this divine, multidimensional, amazing human being that I've worked very hard to grow into becoming.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I I'm gonna give a little bit of a shorter answer than a previous one because to me, it's just someone who creates
Mm.
art
Mhm.
and sees the world through a certain prism. I had a client, a great guy from New York City. He was an ad exec for years, very successful. And he moved to, I think it was Utah. He followed his daughter there. She went to school way out in the Midwest, and he followed, which I thought was beautiful, right? Because he was like, "Look, I want to be closer to my family." So when his daughter went to college, he and his wife moved out there as well. And we worked together. I did a project for him, and he left a testimonial for me. It's still on LinkedIn. You can look it up. And he was saying that my business acumen is ridiculous,
Mm.
right? But he said, but he has the soul of an artist. And he said, and that makes all the difference in the world. And there's those moments where you feel seen. And I understand what people say when they feel validated, because to me, it's always been colors and a story. My lowest mark in university is a C minus in finance one. I was memorizing all these equations. I didn't even know what they were for. And I didn't even know what finance was. I thought it was like financing, where you like get a vehicle and you got to pay 7% annual interest rate. I didn't know what it was. And then I decided, okay, I want to do my master's degree and I'm going to actually need to pull my grades up. And man, it's hard. If you have one C minus, like I had to get an A or an A plus for like 3 semesters in a row to pull up that one C minus. So I decided to do something I've never done in my life before, which is read the textbook before class. All right. Got through high school. I didn't really have to study. It wasn't all that hard. But when I was reading in the student center in September, I remember there was no one there. It's so nice out. I remember I was reading this finance textbook and just like not understanding a thing. And the finance textbook has no color, it's all black and white images, just all these blocks of text. And I think I was reading a chapter about the time value of money, and I just all of a sudden I got it. I just got it. I would remember saying to myself, how could anyone run a business and not understand this? Like literally, you have fixed resources and you have unlimited options, and you need to decide, how do we deploy these resources to get the outsized return on investment? But when there's all these different ones and they have different investment needs, different resource needs, different payback periods, how do we analyze them? And if we do have extra resources, what do we do with them? And it became this story. And from that moment forward, when I read a financial statement or anything like that, I'm trying to understand the story of this company. Are they holding too many current assets? Are they insolvent? Are the receivables out of whack? It tells me the story of how they're operating. And when I diagnose that, I can find, sometimes it's better for me to start with financial statements than it is even speaking to the CEO. And so once you see the story in that, then it's like trying to get to a point where you see the connection of how these things work together. But when all you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Right.
But as you get these additional tools for how to look at a business, now you're like, I get it. Like they've been holding this cash because they are still the kind of business that thinks that, but the opportunity cost is that this is not being invested or deployed. They're retaining too many earnings. They should be either paying that out as to their shareholders as dividends or reinvesting in the company. But it sounds so cool to be able to say that, but to truly understand that, you have to see the beauty and how these things connect together. And It requires a level of study and acuity and patience and experience. But if you ask me, how do I read an income statement now as opposed to how I read it 20 years ago? I don't even know. I don't even know what I would have told you back then. Like right now, it's like my eyes go to certain things right away. Like gross margin, that's where I look at right away. The first thing, why? I can't even tell you. I just know that I'm going to get closer to the story in there if I start there. That's how I read it. But if you ask me the purpose of a balance sheet, I can tell it to you now in a way that will come alive, not like when I learned it 30 years ago in college. So for me, it's the connection between things and the beauty in the connections. That's the interesting part. It never started with the numbers for me. I don't care. Like I was never a quantitative person, but understanding the numbers have unlocked a deeper truth, which is all any artist is trying to get to. That's all they want, is to find the truth as they see it. And they would rather someone have, I hate it, I never want it, or I love it, but the worst thing you can do to an artist is be indifferent. They're like, yeah, it's okay. That's the worst thing. I'd rather you hate it because I found the truth in something and I want you to feel it to the level I do. That's an artist to me. But you can find that in anything if the beauty, the energy, the purpose, and the prism are personal, and you're trying to relate that to a world that you feel in some way doesn't see it the way you do. That's an artist.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love your description of it. And
you love finance.
No.
You want to get you a ledger and start filling in some numbers.
No. We'll leave that to you. We'll leave that to you.
I don't want to do that either, trust me.
I would just add to what you said in terms of like the description of an artist. Like, we just want to be fully expressed.
That's it.
In this life. And,
100%.
For people that are like me who do really connect this like level of expression and connect everything to our higher purpose in life and just want to educate, inspire, and empower other people to wake up, right? Stop living this hamster wheel of a life and actually go after your dreams, because you might actually achieve them, right? It's really such a beautiful thing, because at the end of the day, you've filled our conversation with so much value, with so much amazing energy, with so much light and wisdom, and you're truly one of a kind. And I just appreciate you so much.
And let me say, I don't want anyone to hear me speaking and thinking that I think it's a great idea, that I don't absolutely want to tell people what to do or how. It's not that. There are people like you who have a heart and a purpose where it overflows in them. Once they've found something beautiful, they can't help but want the world to see it. The energy feels different when they're like, you need to believe this or else. But when you truly know you have something beautiful and you want the world to see it, there's a divinity in that. And I want you to know that I acknowledge that. The fact that I don't operate in that particular lane means that I am less than in that area. But history has never been kind to people who can see a little further down the road than everybody else. And then in retrospect, they're the ones that end up changing a lot. So for me, I get a psychological and a societal safety that you may not get, because you're on the edge saying, look, the world isn't flat, and there's, there may be only 12 planets in our solar system, but there is, over 100 billion in our galaxy. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, thank you for this conversation.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. My pleasure.
It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah?
And
okay, I like that.
Last thing I want to say is, anybody who is interested in being inspired on a daily basis, follow this amazing gentleman.
Yeah?
Because you are just, whatever it is that you are driven by, it sounds like it's unconscious based on what we talked about.
Who knows?
Yet, you know what? It's probably super conscious, because whatever it is that you're doing, you're really, really impacting a lot more people than I think you even know. So
thank you for paying attention, because sometimes I get in my own way and I don't realize that, but the responsibility that people who are influencing people are paying attention is going to make me a little bit more conscious of the things I do. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Love it.
Thank you, Fasana.
Thank you.
Okay.